What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you the throwback episode with Dave Martin Swagger and your co-host Pat Sheehan here. We're going to talk about a couple of TV shows, a movie, a couple of music projects. But Dave, I want to start first. What's up with the background today, dude?
Technical difficulties in quarantine, my guy. It's not what you want. Trust me.
No, I mean, you never want technical difficulties, but especially in quarantine. We all have enough on our plates. So if you want to support us, you want to make Dave feel good, hit that subscribe button on youtube.com/nostalgiapod or go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to follow us any way you want to. And also, you can follow our Nowstalgia Best of 2020 playlist if you search just that, Nowstalgia Best of 2020 on Spotify. Give us a follow there to stay up to date with all the best music. And I'm wondering, Dave, if Dorian Electra's new project, My Agenda, is going to get a song on this playlist because he's a fairly new artist, dropped his first album, Flamboyant, last year. I'm saying he, and I recognize I'm using the wrong pronouns, actually.
Yes,
he is. They are a artist who identifies as gender fluid and queer. They use they, them pronouns. Dorian Electra's album, My Agenda. Good, bad, where are you at with it?
Yeah. So this kind of snuck up on me. Didn't realize this was coming out. I had been kind of waiting for this because I saw the love for Dorian's album last year, Flamboyant, and wanted to, get in on that. So then when I saw this new album was coming out, I listened to Flamboyant this weekend, right into My Agenda, first time listening to Dorian at all. And I will say I like Flamboyant more, but I think they're both short listens, both quick listens, have those qualities that Dorian's quickly kind of made a name for themselves with, namely that quirky, out there, like electro pop, bubblegum bass music, very much in the realm of 100 Gex, which would make sense because Dylan Brady is on 4 of the tracks on My Agenda. So, it's that weird out there stuff. And that means it's going to be good, bad, in between. It's going to be all over the place. And I think that's what you get even on like a 25-minute listen.
Yeah, Dorian is right around our age, actually. He's 28, I believe. And they're a very interesting artist because, like you said, they're very Gex, and they have that chopped and screwed type feeling to their songs. It feels very millennial, almost even younger than him, like Gen Z-ish, where it feels like some songs are 4 songs thrown together. It'll go from like a electro pop song to a metal song to like an R&B type outro. They'll be rapping at points, they'll be singing at points. It's really all over the place, and I actually think there's some really great moments on this album, but then there's some real clunkers or songs that fell flat or just did not work at all. Why don't we start with the stuff we liked? What songs or what moments really stood out to you?
Yeah, for me, that's pretty clearly Sorry Bro, I Love You, which is just a straight Gex song. It's produced by Dylan Brady. That is a straight Gex song. That would fit right in on 1,000 Gex. And that would make sense because Dorian was actually on the remix album we talked about this year. But yeah, I mean, that has, that deep pounding EDM combined with like really like matter of fact, almost like weird lyrics, On Flamboyant, Dorian got into a lot of more like gender politics and stuff like that. Often, like, I think in really funny, like over the top ways. There's songs like called like Guy Liner and Adam and Steve. Like sometimes it's like kind of like really like in your face, but I think in a good way. I don't know if Dorian really got into as much of that on this one, but even something like Sorry Bro, I Love You, which it's kind of like a basic concept. But for a track that's less than 2 minutes, I think that actually is like really dynamite.
Yeah, that was one of the standouts to me as well, which is actually followed up by Monk Mode, which I'm not sure how much of that song I really jived with, and then followed by a song called Edgelord featuring Rebecca Black, which
from the clouds.
Yeah, just ridiculous. She's actually been growing a following on TikTok, quite popular on there.
Good for her.
Yeah, definitely good for her. One of the most mocked musical artists of the last decade, probably. I actually really liked the title track, though, My Agenda. Again, it had that like thumpy kind of beat to it. You get Pussy Riot, who is one of like the more high profile co-signers of Dorian, obviously with Gex and Charlie right behind, who he toured with Charlie. And then it's got that like, I don't know. I don't even really know how to describe it. It's kind of like a Skrillex, I guess, EDM sound at the second half of the track. That like metal EDM, when it pops up on here, is a really welcome sound because it's so distinct and something that I feel like is a strong suit for him. Yeah, I mean, I thought another track that stood out, but I don't know if it was really great, was Barbie Boy. I thought that was like a decent pop song just because I thought the chorus was fairly catchy, but it wasn't a track that I really found myself wanting to go back to too much. Anything else that you found was good on this?
Yeah, I also like F the World. The Gentleman was decent too. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Flamboyant was tighter. It just kind of, I guess, like the sonics of like the song structures and stuff just kind of seem more conventional to me, even though a lot of the subject matter and the actual sounds are kind of out there and all over the place still. But on My Agenda, Dorian, I think, kind of doubles down on being out there, which is cool as an independent artist. By all means, just let it fly,
Yeah,
and it seems like Dorian's been maintaining a pretty healthy following, so I think this will be successful. But it kind of snuck up on me. I'm glad I realized this was out so we could talk about this one.
Yeah, I'm glad we caught it too. If you listen to My Agenda and then listen to the next project we're going to talk about, James Blake's Before EP, it's very different vibes. Like you said, Dorian Electra's album was a little bit messy, a little bit out there. James Blake, a lot more peaceful, a lot more cohesive, and I think well produced would be a word that would come to mind, because last time we talked about James Blake dropping a project was in 2019 at the beginning of the year with Assume Form, which I think we both walked away from feeling like this is definitely James Blake reaching his potential. This is him really putting it together. We'd had some albums of his that were hit and miss with some of the songs, but this felt like a cohesive work. And Before feels like a continuation in a way of that vision and that song crafting that Blake is really, I think, refining. I found myself throughout kind of being like, that's probably my favorite song on it. No, I think I like that one a little bit more. That flourish right there was really nice. And I walked away impressed and just wanting more. So hopefully there's more coming. How are you feeling about this EP though?
Yeah, I liked it a lot, in particular there's two songs that really stand out to me. I Keep Calling, the first track, and Do You Ever, the third track. Those, they kind of hark back to like James Blake's true roots as like a London club DJ. Even though these songs don't actually sound like year one James Blake or anything, but I think like the presence of like loops in the production, like stood out to me, brought me back like that, and like the Simps. So like it's kind of weird, or not weird, but like it's cool to see James Blake continue to progress, because this definitely feels like another step forward the way Assumed Form did, but also not exactly like what Assumed Form was. So it definitely seems like James Blake is in a really inspired place these days, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about Assumed Form, we acknowledged that he was he's in a relationship right now with Jamila Jamil from The Good Place, and they seem to have just a really supportive and loving relationship from everything you can tell publicly, obviously. And that seems to be a real inspiration for some of these tracks. I agree. Do You Ever was probably the number one standout to me. but I really liked the song before, and particularly the way that he like would swell the strings up around the chorus. I felt like that was just a really nice touch, and it's something that I feel like if it wasn't done well, can just not have the same effect. But this really gives you that like swelling emotional effect that I think he was going for. But then even, you mentioned the first track, I Keep Calling, was great. Do You Ever? I love the breakdown at the end of Do You Ever, where it was him trading back and forth just like bars in that loop that you talked about, of him being like, really, and then like if you're ever gonna whatever with me, it was just a really inspired ending. And then even Summer of Now I thought was a solid track. So not a bad song on here in my opinion. I don't think it's been publicly said if there's more coming, but I have to assume we're gonna get an album in the near future.
Yeah, I think so. He has not publicly said, as far as I can tell. There has been some other loose singles that he had released earlier this year, like Godspeed, just on September 11th recently. So we're definitely getting that kind of like a piecemeal approach to releases at the moment. So I do hope it adds up to something. Probably this also might be another product of quarantine. I mean, James Blake, not someone that released lots of albums in quick succession. Assume Form just last year, but because he has nothing else to do, he just seems to be working. We knew he'd been working with like Flatbush Zombies. He's obviously a big collaborator all the time. That certainly hasn't changed, but seems like he's focusing on himself too. And I think I Keep Calling, Do You Ever? These feel like the closest James Blake really gets to like single potential, like playlist potential with his music, in terms of like accessible one-offs within a larger context. I think that, again, another cool side to him as an artist.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess just to throw a quick question out there, I don't know if you even have an answer. This is off the top of my head. If you could see Blake, collaborate with an artist right now, who would you want to see? On the last one, his last album, Assume Form, we had like Andre 3000, right. Travis Scott, Moses Sumney, Rosalia. Had quite a few.
Rosalia early.
I know. Yeah. I'm wondering if someone like Slow Thigh. I mean, he just did release a track with him on it, but maybe getting like another track that just him and Slow Thigh. Maybe some of those like drill artists over in either in Brooklyn or in the UK.
Anyone, let's get it done.
Yes, let's do it. No, definitely, I think there's some potential. So hoping we get some interesting collabs whenever that album comes out. And check out, again, our Nowstalgia Best of 2020 playlist on Spotify, where we did add a James Blake song. We'll be adding a Dorian Electra song as well. All right, time to talk TV. We got 3 big TV hits today, but I'm going to take the ball for the first one, David. That's going to be The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Ooh.
On Netflix. We spoke briefly last year about The Haunting of Hill House.
2018.
Oh, wow. 2 years ago. It's interesting. Didn't feel that long ago. And Hill House has really stuck with me, I think, for 2 reasons. One, I don't watch, or I'm not attracted to a lot of scary TV shows or movies. So watching a show that was about haunting and ghosts and spooky stuff was rare for me. And I think I really liked Haunting of Hill House. It wasn't a perfect show. I think some of the narrative stuff got a little bit muddled and long and drawn out. But I think the jump scares and the overall story arc in terms of like family trauma and grief and healing from that together was really, really strong. And I have to say, Bly Manor, I didn't think was as strong as Hill House, but I still think the touch and it felt so familiar, and just the overall arc of the story ended in a place where I felt satisfied with it. If there's one thing we can say about Hill House or Bly Manor, I'm sorry, for sure, it's that the acting on Bly Manor is really, really strong, and it highlights a couple of real up and comers. So the 2 names people probably know are Victoria Pedretti and Oliver Jackson Cohen, who was in The Invisible Man, kind of seems like he's on a track to stardom in some sense. And Victoria Pedretti, was in the first season of Hill House. It was also in the show You on Netflix, where she, in the second season, she got a lot of time, and it seems like she's going to be part of it moving forward. But the people that really stood out were kind of like the supporting performances in this. You have Tania Miller, who plays Hannah Gross, who's like a housekeeper at Bly Manor. She was excellent, and I thought her episode, while being one of the most like psychotically like mind-bending ones, her presence throughout was just really strong. And then you have Rahul Kohli, who plays Owen. He's the cook. He was excellent in this, had this awesome huge mustache, and
it's
was
a nice
just
look
like,
for him. He's
yes,
been, well known on social media for a while.
And he had he does not look like he does on social media a lot of the time. So he was a little bit unrecognizable at first, but he had such a charming presence throughout that he really struck me every time. And he had this one episode where his mother dies, and he gets this like monologue about what it means to be alive, what it means to be dead, and really moving. I feel like this is really going to up his star, which was cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking. So I caught about an episode and a half of this when it was on where I was, and just watching it, like it seemed like awfully romantic. I think I was watching towards the beginning of the season. Is that a theme that continues, and is that a change from Hill House, or is that actually just the way these two entries in this anthology series go? It's like a really grounded, like emotional beats with the characters anyway, while there's obviously supernatural things going on.
So yeah, I think it does explore the idea of love and how that plays into hauntings in both seasons. But I think the first season is a lot more about like family love, where this season was a lot more about like romantic love and betrayal in a sense. So there's a ghost that's haunting the main character Danny from the get-go. Even in the first scene, you see this ghost, right? And it has these big bright red eyes or orange yellow eyes, and anytime she looks in the mirror, she sees it. And you come to find out, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the show, it's her ex-fiance, or I guess deceased fiance, who died getting out of a car because he had a fight with Danny when they were breaking up, and she carries that guilt around with her. They explore that. They explore the ghost whose presence kind of holds people to Bly Manor, whose husband, she died back in the 1700s of, I think it was the tuberculosis or something along those lines. Yeah. So her husband ends up actually getting with her sister afterwards. So she felt not only family betrayal, but partner betrayal in all this. And that's kind of like a theme throughout, and like how you build relationships, how you find love, how you cherish the time that you have is a running theme throughout this story, and throughout Hill House as well. I think the pacing is still a problem with this show. The last like 3 episodes for me of Bly Manor felt like they could have been condensed into maybe an episode and a half, or maybe even 1 episode if told right. And you know that there's this like woman, this scary woman ghost who walks around and kills people. You see them kill Oliver Jackson Cohen's character earlier in the season just by choking him out. And then she drags the bodies into the lake, and that's kind of like the thing. But you don't find out about what her deal is until the second to last episode, and then the whole episode is committed to her. So you see the main character get grabbed by this ghost, and then you don't actually find out what happens to that character for another whole episode, which felt it's a storytelling choice to kind of keep this a secret, but I didn't feel like I cared enough about this lady in the lake as an overarching like bad guy, because it was just kind of like, she's there, she kills people, we don't know why, and then it's like, here's the whole story. So it felt a bit disjointed.
Do you think that the ghost is like, or at least the villainous ghost anyway, is like superfluous to the story? Like it's like the least interesting part of what you're watching? So it seems like a problem in anything horror related.
Yeah. So I think like, if you think about it as like a video game, this is like the big bad. This is Ganondorf, right? But the ghosts that you actually end up being more afraid of are Oliver Jackson Cohen's Peter Quint, and Tahira Sharif's Rebecca Jessel, who end up falling in love but are killed. Peter Quint is killed by the ghost, and then convinces Rebecca to let him inherit her body, and then he kills her so that they can be together in the afterlife. And that might be the romantic part, that the episode that you saw, because that's very much a major part of the story in the middle. And I think you're way more afraid of Peter Quint in this because he's much more present throughout. You see him kind of inheriting the body of the children in the story and being very creepy towards people. He actually kills Hannah, the housekeeper, while embodying the body of a child. So he seems like a lot more of like a menacing presence throughout. Whereas this woman, I mean, we know we're supposed to be afraid of her, and the children kind of like save the adults from her, but a lot of the time, you're not super concerned about her until they make you be. A couple of things I just want to shout out before we wrap up, because I don't know if there's much more for me to really get into. It does portray a lesbian relationship in the 1980s, and I thought what was really cool about it was they were realistic in the sense that they couldn't be like openly gay out in public, but there wasn't any real shame around that, and it wasn't something that was portrayed as like, we have to hide this because we're gay, but more so like just the reality of cultures that we can't get married. But it's pretty unabashed, which is cool. And there was also, I thought, really good children performances, which is not always the case. And I think we're going to talk about some children performances in the third day in a second that might be up and down. But I found the performances from the two children in this. I want to shout them out. Benjamin Evan Ainsworth and Emily B. Smith to be really, really good. So shout out to them. And I just want to see more of this. This is a fine show. I don't leave feeling like this is the show of the year, but I'm super satisfied after watching.
Sure. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if another season is eventually commissioned. Also notable, this season, Haunting of Bly Manor, wrapped less than a month before COVID quarantine kicked in. So a show that really got in right under the radar in terms of being able to finish its production as planned.
For sure. Glad that they did. And also glad that we got Lovecraft Country when we did, Dave. We talked about the first episode a couple of weeks back, 10 weeks back now, actually. Yeah. And we were pumped because, you have Jonathan Majors, you have Journey Smollett, and Courtney B. Vance,
Williams.
At the time we hadn't seen Michael Williams yet, but we knew he was coming. Strong cast, sci-fi storytelling. The first episode was super gripping, as they're working their way through the 1950s South as Black people. It's very interesting.
60s, I think. Right.
Was it 60s? Okay.
Post-Korea.
Whenever
that is.
Post-Korea for sure. So very interesting episode. And I think it set up a lot of potential for the season. I think the thing I would say about this show as we've wrapped it up, it's jam-packed with metaphor, with plot. Every episode feels a bit like a bottle episode with like an overarching narrative, kind of like a new monster or sci-fi story every week, which is cool in some ways, but also it's like a lot of like downloading and learning what's happening in certain ones. And, like there's an Indiana Jones type episode, there's a ghost story episode, there's a fighting monsters or flying through space episode. So there's a lot of different pieces to it, and I think at times it just felt heavy and like just a lot to get through. I don't know how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, the more I didn't finish it yet, but the more I watched it, the more I kind of like, I guess, realized that I need to like check out on like plot investment a little bit. It's like that setup I think is quite strong because it kind of juxtaposes the two things, right? The real life villains, monsters, the racist white people of the time, and the institutions that enable that and keep that going, right? and then actual fictitious Lovecraftian monsters that come and go and change throughout the season. And I think they do a good job of saying, like, well, remember, it's actually scary, or is this stuff? And I will say, I think I was obviously much more tense whenever I was watching any kind of like encounter like that. When like in episode 3, like the haunted house one, where like you get the flaming cross put on the lawn by the white people because God forbid they live in the same neighborhood, right? It's like that's way more tense and gripping than like the ghost trapped in the basement. Like I didn't really care about that part. And I like that they would move around. I think like the whole like doing bottle episodes to not so much worry about like the a plot forward momentum. I actually really like that because that's pretty uncommon these days in like like mainstream dramas and stuff. So I appreciate that, and I think they kind of do that structure well. But I don't know if the mix between like the real bad and the fictional bad and like the works when you have like this much like really heavy-handed like symbolism and stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't think there's an episode that hits that more on the head than episode 5, which is called Strange Case, where Ruby sleeps with William Brathwaite, or is it Brathwaite? Is that the character's last name?
Something like that.
Braithwaite, yeah. And
very white looking.
Yes, like very Aryan race looking motherfuckers. And Ruby sleeps with him and then wakes up as a white woman, and it basically lives her life as a white woman. She goes and gets a job that she's been trying to get and was overqualified to get, but was now able to get because she was white during that time. Using her white privilege to access things that she had been rejected from or neglected from. And at the end basically comes around to fuck being white, like I like being black and I don't want to live like this fake ass life, basically, is kind of where it gets to. But it does feel like just so on the nose, like actually like watching her like break out of the white person's skin. It's kind of like I get it, and like I also don't like gore a lot, so I was kind of like I don't need to like watch people tear through skin every 5 minutes. But it really just felt like a very like heavy-handed metaphor there. I think there's a couple of episodes though that really stand out as just like fantastic episodes of television. The one that comes to mind for me first is Rewind 1921. While I think there's a lot of symbolism in this one that can be either produce an eye roll from you or be considered really heavy-handed, the fact that they go back to Tulsa in 1921 and are actually showing you how that riot started, and what that was like for people on the ground there was very shocking, but also incredibly engaging. And I say shocking as a white male, watching this. I think for many Black Americans, it's not shocking. It's just their daily experience and the experience of their ancestors. But I thought it was well told and really just a fun like time, like escape episode.
Sure. Definitely contrasts with the way Watchmen handled that last year.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing too. It's like Lovecraft. It's entertaining usually the whole time, and I think that's kind of what it was going for. And I think that's kind of what I've seen a lot of people talk about it with, where it's like maybe like the lofty mantle we tried to place it on as something, with Jordan Peele's stamp of approval, with Jonathan Majors in the lead, we're like, oh, well, okay, well, this is going to be like really prescient, and like it's prescient to a point, but because I think it's over the top intentionally, usually, I feel like it's hard to treat it differently than like this, just kind of how it is. Like I feel like I decided to take it at face value, but it seems to be a bit of a hit for HBO. This finale was the highest rated episode. I think its premiere is one of the, if not the most watched premiere of new dramas they had this year. So Do you think a season 2 is worth it? Like, they could do it, they don't have to do it, but
so you not finishing the season, I am going to spoil something for you. It's tough because Jonathan Majors won't be back, right? Atticus dies in the final episode, and the family honestly ends up the way a lot of Black families in America do, where the the father figure is not present for one reason or another, and usually that's because of systemic racism in some way. Where and the women are kind of the ones raising the child. Atticus has to sacrifice himself here so that his son can live. And I think a really nice way is that Montrose, played by Michael K. Williams, kind of gets that chance to be the grandfather and father that he wasn't to Atticus, and that was kind of a driving part of their character relationship throughout. So I think where it's hard is it's going to be a show that if it does pick back up is going to be totally on Journey Smollett, and it'd be interesting to see if they try to pull someone else back in, or maybe if they keep the same concept and do like an anthology type series where they follow other people. Because where they also get to at the end is that Black people are the only people that are able to have the magic that white people aren't able to have it anymore. So I'm not sure if they'd have to go maybe further back in time to explore other concepts. I guess I'm just not sure what a second season looks like, but I'd be happy to have this back, because if you can get this cast again, let them cook. That's my opinion on it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it also has like really strong budget. Production values are good, and again, like I think Misha Green and crew, like the creativity was not lacking. So I don't think they would just rush into a season 2. I'd like to think they would have some cool ideas. So, like, again, and even if it didn't totally work for me, you got to appreciate the swing. It's definitely unlike a lot of other things, as we said.
Yeah. Shout out real quick to the episode 6, Meet Me in Daegu, which takes place in 1949 South Korea, and then kind of jumps forward into the Korean War, I believe. A lot of the episode is in Korean, but the fact that it explored Korean culture during that time, family relationships, and that Jia is as her character is not just like a one-off in this bottle episode, but actually comes back to play a major part in the finale at the end. Is just really cool, and I like that they take these sorts of swings. I wanted to ask you real quick. We've had a couple of Jordan Peele products now. After Get Out, everybody was buying. Are you still buying?
Yeah, I'm still buying. Come on. And again, he produced this. He didn't make this, so this doesn't even mean that much, right? Think about how everyone else throws their names on things as a producer. Jordan Peele's the same way. So Lovecraft Country to me is has very little to do with my evaluation of Jordan Peele. Very much looking forward to his third directorial feature. Hopefully get that soon.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I'm still buying. Give me all the Jordan Peele stock if you're selling it. Let's jump, though, to another HBO product, Third Day, which we also talked about a couple weeks back. The first episode wrapped up last night, Monday, 19th. Helmed by Jude Law, Naomi Harris, Catherine Waterston. This is a very strange show, and I'm going to caveat with I'm still working my way through the final episode, so I don't know how it wraps up completely, but please spoil it for me, Dave. What is your opinion after seeing the whole series?
Yeah, I definitely have some admiration for it, because like Lovecraft Country, it's pretty unique in what it's trying to do. And we knew this going in, but Third Day is specifically divided into 2 distinct halves, 3-episode halves. Lead protagonist at the beginning is Jude Law as he encounters OC Island and goes through quite the journey there in these 3 days. And then later, Naomi Harris arrives as our new lead. And then we learn quickly that she is in fact that wife that Jude Law had previously mentioned. And, what I think was notable is those 2 halves have 2 very different vibes. And thinking about them as a whole, like the Third Day, it's pretty interesting proposition. And then of course you think about that 12-hour live stream they did in between the halves, which I didn't really watch it. I looked into what it was though, and like that's another thing that's really ambitious. We're like, oh, let's watch these people on OC Island, and if we're watching at the right moment, we'll see Jude Law in the background. It's like that's a really like weird out there idea that obviously was not necessary to be watched to enjoy the season, but like just the fact that they even did that, and the fact that like everyone involved was like, fuck yeah, this is half the reason I signed on for this show. Like that's just really cool. And
it committed also, completely.
Yeah. I also was like, OC Island, I'm down to like visit this place sometime. Apparently it's actually a private island though, and it's owned by a record producer, and Rihanna actually rented this bitch to record her latest album, I think last year at some point. So that was
gonna get that album?
Yeah, who knows, right? more beauty products to come out first, but like, that was a really weird like thing to like uncover while watching the third day. But I mean, how did you feel about like the distinction between the two halves? Because I think it's really stark how the show changes, right? Because in the beginning, like Jude Law, like by like the end of the second into the third episode, he's like fucking tripping balls, and it's like this really like out there like visual show for an episode and a half,
Yeah, those first 3 episodes, in reflecting on them, it makes me wonder how much of that is supposed to be interpretation of the perspective of someone who has some sort of serious mental health issue. So whether they talk about how Jude Law's character would act strange at times prior to coming to the island, would kind of just like take off, possibly this is somebody who has like a bipolar disorder or like a psychotic disorder, even like a schizophrenia or something along those lines, where you're not really sure what to believe. You're not, there's that feeling of like paranoia that kind of runs through those first 3 episodes. And I think that continues throughout, because Naomi Harris also is quite like, what the fuck is going on here? But it almost feels surreal a lot of the time with Jude Law, whereas I feel like even though Naomi Harris's episodes are still packed with that paranoia, they feel a little bit more grounded to me. Did you get that sense too?
Yeah, definitely. And it was kind of cool. Like after the passage of time, we see Naomi Harris's character with the kids interact with all these people we already knew or further experience with Jude, and that was also kind of cool to me. Like, because like OC was like so like full of life and like on the surface normal-ish when Jude Law is first getting there, the festival and stuff, and like getting fucked up in the bar or whatever, or the tavern, right? And then you see like Naomi Harris pull up, and it's like, yeah, this place is actually a dump. Barely anyone lives here. What do you expect? Like,
right?
And like, oh wow, okay. But like, and then like throughout, you get like peppered with like the like not supernatural, but like almost like religious aspects, right? Like the deep history of like the Celtic people that used to live there, and like you see like these old like shrines and altars and stuff, and
freaky shit. It's like season 1 of True Detective type stuff.
Right, that's a good comp. Yeah, but honestly, like some of the dark stuff I found quite unsettling. Like,
yeah,
it's just like you're just watching like just it's kind of terror. Like that's really all it is, right? It's like these people that are like super like, I don't know, it's cultish, right? And like
right,
they're just super committed to how they are, and they'll do anything. And it's like the violence is pretty stark and in your face.
Yeah, when Jude Law is tripping, and I forgot to mention this before, he's looking at the guy with the bag on his head who hits him in the head with the crowbar. Yeah. I mean, that was straight out of the Dark Knight or Batman Begins, right? When they have the gas from Scarecrow, like that fell straight out of that. Yeah, and just kind definitely. Of like all those visuals kind of reminded me of that. Very, very unsettling. How did you feel about how it wrapped up, that final episode? I haven't watched it yet, but was it a satisfying ending to you?
I think it was, because you actually get like the two halves meeting in terms of Jude Law and Naomi Harris going, and you learn, spoilers, that kid was not actually their son, and like it's actually kind of funny. Naomi Harris is obviously losing her fucking shit on Jude Law, but like she's like, our kid died when he was 10 years ago. He should be 16. This kid's not fucking 16. You're an idiot, and you're losing your mind again. And like you kind of realize that like because like I think that's what's cool about the show leading up to this, right? It's like you're not actually sure if Jude Law is having one of those episodes breakdowns that you had been told he had in the past, because
right.
as an unreliable narrator, we only can really see what we see, and it's not clear. And like, again, like everyone on OC is obviously a lying, shady fuck, so like you don't really know what's right. But then you have Naomi Harris just being like, "No, this is not how it is," and like your kind of relationship with what's happening,
reality,
I think, it changes permanently. The kids, I actually didn't mind the kids in this. The older one is Tandy Newton's daughter. Funny enough,
she looks like her.
Yeah, she was in the Dumbo movie. I was like, I vaguely recognized her. I had to look that up.
I thought she was really good. The older,
yeah. She's definitely talented. Has those genes.
The younger daughter, I wasn't that big of a fan of. Although the scene where she's like taking care of Watterson in episode 5 after she gave birth, and then Watterson grabs the knife.
Yes,
that was a super tense scene. I thought really well done, and Catherine Watterson, I thought was excellent in this. Like she really stood out to me. I mean, I expected, I expected Jude Law and Naomi Harris to show out and be great, but Watterson really surprised me. So I'm all in on her. And I also thought Emily Watson, who played kind of like the innkeeper's wife, who was kind of running the show behind the scenes, so to speak. I thought she was really good too. Like kind of keeping things a secret, but like really like pulling all the strings. Very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I want to shout out the makeup department. I think a lot of the stuff early on with Jude, where he's like all bruised and bloody and dirty and stuff, it's like they really showed out. They had a lot of fun with that. You can tell. And as we mentioned in the first episode, it's less obvious. I guess it does come up with Naomi Harris and crew, but like there's so many instances where the two of them need to just fucking pick up and leave this cursed place, but
they're being told to do that.
Yeah, like it's something, man. But I actually really like the sequence where Jude tries to like walk back as the causeway's closing with the tides, and like he's like obviously like, just basically swimming, and like then Catherine Watterson like pulling him back, and again like because at that time you don't know what's reality and what's not. Is it actually a hand? Is this being pulled back? Oh no, it's actually a real person. Like those kind of touches I like. I don't know if I was like super invested in like the OC people's angle to everything in terms of that. I think I just appreciate like kind of the atmosphere and the unconventional nature of everything. Just again, because it for a limited series, 6-episode limited series, it actually kind of does a lot of unique things. So
yeah,
I like that.
I agree. Check out The Third Day if you want something a little trippy, and to watch Jude Law tripping out as well. And Dave, some people that definitely tripped out are the defendants in the trial of the Chicago 7. Aaron Sorkin's most recent movie, brought to Netflix after its release was pushed back and canceled.
Sold by Paramount.
Well, I guess why don't we start here? Sorkin, how do you feel about him?
Great.
You love Sorkin?
Big Sorkin guy, yeah.
What are your favorite Sorkin projects?
I mean, they're obvious, right? It's A Few Good Men, right? Like that shit fucking slaps, bro.
Okay, I'll give you that. That's pretty good. The Social Network.
Yeah, like those two movies right there.
Yeah.
Like he's the most accomplished and one of the most famous screenwriters we have, and he started in theater, did TV, did movies, and now he's also directing. And I think directing is, relatively speaking, one of his weaker suits, but like I think he's cool, and like he's polarizing to people, I guess, because he has his own specific view and that's brought into his movies. He's not unlike like Wes Anderson. He's not unlike Tarantino, Oliver Stone. Like you know what a Sorkin thing is,
right, when you
hear about it. And for him, that's some obvious things, right? That walk and talk dialogue, long tracking shots following that. Also, his personal politics, which are kind of a very idealistic, almost out of date liberal perspective, permeating through the characters, and they're almost like a mouthpiece for Sorkin's personal real life viewpoints.
Yeah.
that's pretty familiar, right? And all that is here again in the Trial of Chicago 7. But also his strength just as a screenwriter with that rapid fire dialogue and just a really strong ability to write sentences and conversations, more often than not, just makes for really engaging stuff. And for me, Chicago 7 was pretty electric movie, and I really liked it.
Especially for a movie where that's basically just a courtroom drama through and through. There's a couple of scenes outside of the courtroom where it's really more like plot moving and kind of building out the understanding of the larger situation, but the main action is in that courtroom. When I think of Sorkin's dialogue, I really think about him as like, or it's kind of like a cell phone, right? Because most dialogue is not boom, 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 boom. I mean, anyone that listens to this podcast know that there's a natural rhythm to a conversation that is not that snappy. And Sorkin just loves to have it be like a notification on your phone. Keep giving me that serotonin one after another, and you're super engaged with it, and it's great. I thought the Trial of the Chicago 7 was really good. I think that Sorkin, unlike Molly's Game, which I think was up and down, but I actually didn't hate.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think it's quite entertaining, but has some of his flaws.
Yeah, I think this feels like a much more cohesive movie and story that's kind of told overall. And you know who really stood out to me in this movie? Sacha Baron Cohen. I mean, if you didn't already know how awesome this guy was as an actor, I mean, people know him mostly for Borat, for Ali G, just being a ridiculous satire character. He's got awesome acting chops, and it almost makes me want to go back and get Bohemian Rhapsody again with him as the lead, because man, that's one of the like biggest what ifs. I feel like he could have crushed it as Freddie,
definitely.
And him playing Abby Hoffman in this was absolutely electric, not only because he got to imbibe the movie with his humor and quick jabs, but then that final scene where he's on the stand and being giving his or being cross-examined by the attorney. Yes. I just thought that was super engaging and really drove home what Sorkin was trying to say. Now, whether you agree with his politics or not, that's up to you, but I just felt like he delivered that heart-wrenching moment so well as that scene right before it where Hayden, played by Eddie Redmayne, is being cross-examined by Rylance as like a practice, and then Abby Hoffman kind of comes in and delivers the heart of the movie, so to speak. So I thought Sacha Baron Cohen really showed out in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably the most likely to get an acting nomination out of this bunch. This movie will definitely have a strong Oscars presence.
Yeah,
it would have probably in general, but especially given the year we've just had, where less movies have come out. Honestly, Redmayne as Tom Hayden was pretty good casting to me, because I think meta-wise, how Tom Hayden's presented in the story kind of fits with how people view Eddie Redmayne. But I was surprised to see Redmayne basically play somebody like straight, like down the middle. We usually think of him as playing like aloof characters or characters with tics, whether it's Fantastic Beasts or Theory of Everything, whatever it is. Eddie Redmayne rarely plays someone who's like just kind of a guy, a normal dude,
Yeah.
And for the more or less he is. He's as Tom Hayden. And, I think there was room for more in terms of the ideological differences between Hayden's and Rennie Davis, and then Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin. And I think that might be a fault we could see with Sorkin, where you kind of understand where Sorkin falls in all of this, right? He's not super left, even though he's left, and like at the end where you have Hayden reading the names at the end, this really rousing, moving scene.
Yeah.
Then you have JGL like stand up out of a sign of respect, because he can be a good guy in the Nixon administration. It's okay that the other guys are not all bad, right? And it's like, I don't know if that adds anything. I feel like that just comes across as corny to me, even if I really like the scene. So like, I think most of the criticism of the movie would just kind of be where you stand on like the personal politics of it all, and it's funny, this is a movie that has a very interesting path to the screen, written in 2007 by Sorkin, planned to be directed by Spielberg, basically killed by the writer's strike that followed. And then flash forward to here, now Sorkin has cred as a director. He can make it himself, and that's what we got. And in the process, a lot of these themes and circumstances feel very relevant to 2020, unfortunately, even though the movie was written 15 years ago and is about something from 1970, 68. When did this take place?
Yeah, actually, it's funny when we were watching it. Julianne, friend of the pod, fiance of one of the podders, said, "Is this supposed to be a social commentary on today?" And I was like, "No, this was just written a long time ago." But I think a lot of the same stuff is still very relevant. Shout out to a couple of people here. Jeremy Strong, as Jerry Rubin, I thought was super fun, and Jeremy
Magic
Strong
beans, man. They might have worked.
He just loves being weird. I love it. It's so great. Michael Keaton, with perhaps the stunt. I don't know if it's stunt casting necessarily, but just what a drop in.
Yeah,
out of nowhere.
Pinch hit Homer.
Yeah,
very welcome presence. Kind of reminds me of how late period Keaton's been going. You think of Spotlight on. That's just these are kind of the roles he does. He's more or less playing himself, but as what was the name of his character? Ramsey Clark, the former AG. A really important part of the movie, really effective scene, where you kind of lose hope again as you're watching it if you don't know the real life history, and having Keaton there, she's just overqualified to deliver those two scenes.
And speaking of, I don't even know if it's overqualified, but Frank Langella, so hateable. Langelia, sorry. So hateable as Julius Hoffman, the judge. God. Oh man, I fucking despise him by the end.
Yes.
And he's such a likable character, although he does do a good job of playing these hateable men. You think about him in Frost vs. Nixon, and he also just brings the heat in that one. Mark Rylance, accent work, so bad. I mean, he just was Mark Rylance for 90% of the movie, but
I didn't mind him, man. He actually had one of my favorite lines when they're back at the house after the day at the trial, and he's like, "Did any of you guys ever show up for jury duty before?"
I know.
No, then shut the fuck up.
Yeah, why isn't there anybody over there that looks like us? Well, did any of you show up for jury duty? Then shut the fuck up. Yeah, so good. Delivered really well. And lastly, last shout out, John Carroll Lynch, who is just that guy, but shows up in so much stuff and is so good. I think my favorite John Carroll Lynch moment is in Crazy Stupid Love when he goes to fight Steve Carell. Just a great scene. But the acting in this is great. We didn't even mention Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who didn't really get a ton to do, but in all the moments he got, I thought killed it.
Absolutely, yeah. I that's another interesting angle to this, right? Yahya's playing Bobby Seale, and in real life, he was eventually removed from the trial. It became Chicago 8 down to the 7, of course, right? And you have that scene, really powerful scene where he's bound and gagged in court, right? Which apparently in real life actually took place for about a week, not just one day. Then he quickly gets sent out of the trial, right? Movie making. But I think, and that's another thing the politics angle of it all. It's Bobby Seale's presence in the Panthers, but at that time, probably more interesting than the fate that happens to the rest of the 7.
Totally.
What happens, I think there's more to gain from making a movie about Seale and Fred Hampton. We are getting a movie, Judas and the Black Messiah, about Fred Hampton next year with Daniel Kaluuya playing Fred and Lakeith Stanfield playing the guy who betrays him, Jesse Plemons, as a fucked up FBI agent. I saw the trailer before Tenet for the first time, and really powerful. You can tell Kaluuya's with it. But how'd you feel about Fred Hampton being in the movie for half a second? I didn't even recognize Kelvin Harrison Jr. playing him, but the scene where I just fucking knew he died as soon as that shit started. I was like, fuck, I didn't know if this was gonna be in the movie or not because I didn't really know how it lined up. But it was so fast almost, right? And there was definitely, I think, room for more with Bobby Seale and crew.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a powerful presence, but just something that wasn't explored enough to really make much of an impact. I did think the scene where he gets gagged in court was really well done, really powerful. Fred Hampton's a very interesting character. I'm glad that we're getting a movie to talk about his life because by all reports, targeted by the U.S. government. As
FBI
a hit
killing.
job. Yeah, it's pretty. It's fucked up shit, really. So I feel like it's just something that needs to be explored more and wasn't in line with what Sorkin wanted to say. So I don't know. Sorkin doesn't tell a lot of black stories. I'll put it that way.
Another thing is he's struggled or has an uneven record anyway with female characters. There's not really many in this movie, so he doesn't have to fuck any up. Small victories. But,
play to your strengths, my guy.
Yeah. But I mean, you think about the movie, you think about the star power of it all, right? Like, remove Netflix from the equation. You have Sorkin, who's won a Best Screenplay and has been nominated 2 other times. You have a Best Actor winner in Eddie Redmayne. You have two people who just won Emmys, and Jeremy Strong and Yahya Abdul-Mateen. You have another Best Supporting Actor winner in Rylance. Like, it is loaded with celebrated people, which is why, again, I think this movie's going to do well at the Oscars in April.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll be interesting to see if Sacha Baron Cohen goes on the campaign trail, because we've never really seen him get the chance. And I would like to see what that looks like, whether he just makes a mockery of it or whether he actually campaigns for it.
Yeah, and then and Langella also was nominated for Frost Nixon too. But the thing that what's interesting about Baron Cohen's case is this Friday or Thursday, Borat 2 is coming out on Amazon. Borat, not the same kind of performance. Obviously, will that turn voters off? As stupid as that is to say, who knows, right?
But we'll be talking about it next week, right, Dave?
That we will. We got a lot of shit coming up.
Yeah. What else do we got?
Yeah, so there's a lot of notable, important movies coming out. We'll be talking about Kajillionaire, which is already out. We didn't get to that this week. But on top of that, we'll have Borat 2, which is called Borat sequel film, I think is the name.
Like that, yeah.
On Prime. The Rebecca remake on Netflix. Rebecca, of course, a Best Picture winner. Remake with Armie Hammer on Netflix. On the Rocks, a new Sofia Coppola movie. Her reuniting with Bill Murray once again. The Witches from Robert Zemeckis on HBO Max finally came out. A very long journey to the screen. A movie that's been made before. This is a new version of that. And also, we have the start of another HBO miniseries, The Undoing, with Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant. Kidman and David E. Kelly reuniting after Big Little Lies. So,
a lot of stuff.
We'll
be talking about it. Hit that subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, as well as soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod. Wear a mask. Take care of yourself. See you next week.